Hey everybody, Goosebumps or Dummies here, and I just showed you a pretty accurate representation of what the community thinks of these 8 books I am about to show you. Today's video is about the universally loved Goosebumps books across the entire franchise, and these are just books that I never see negative reviews or barely see any people have any negatives about them. So today, I'm going to be talking about any negatives I might have for them and share my thoughts on why I think they're so loved. I mean, some very obviously why, some not very clear, especially when it comes down to what I think of it. And yeah, we're just going to be sharing some thoughts. So yeah, I've narrowed it down to 8, but let me tell you, there's probably like at least 50 books that like nobody hates. Maybe 40, 35. There are so many books out there that the community just praises almost overall that it's really absurd at this point. But, yeah, I've narrowed it down to the 8 most popular, I feel. Minus 1, because I do want to have some representation for, the mainstream series, because the 90s there was the 3 main series, original series, GYG, so I have a GYG on here, and Series 2000s, as well as at least a modern, and we have a modern. Yeah, moderns aren't very liked, so, but there is one that is very liked, and we'll get to that later. So yeah, let's just dive in, since the first pick is going to be probably the most obvious one, The Haunted Mask. Now, The Haunted Mask is probably the most popular story of all time in Goosebumps. This is the Goosebumps story, I would say, and I'm pretty sure a lot of people would agree. This is more popular than Night of the Living Dummy at this point. Literally the icon, so a lot of people are going to love it, obviously, and yeah. That is basically the reason it is the most recognizable Goosebumps book of all time. So people are gonna love it. It's like the one-day Horrorland effect. Well, so I do see negative things about that from numerous people, to be fair, so that's why it's not on here today. It is a very well-liked book because of how iconic it is. This is no different, only this is way more liked than, some other iconic books, like Jack Lenz. That one has some haters, believe it or not. Moving on, we have the next most obvious one, Welcome to Dead House. This one I never hear shit for. Alright, and I'm gonna admit it, I do have one little small issue of the book, and that is its pacing. It's really slow. And I don't mind slow books, it's just, compared to the other Goosebumps books, it feels out of place, but I get that Stine probably wasn't used to writing kids' books necessarily, or at least, like, in this genre of kids' horror. Maybe he was trying to find his footing, or he was just making a really slow-paced book. I don't know. But yeah, everybody loves this book. I never hear shit about it. It's always like a 10 out of 10, 9 out of 10, usually a 10 out of 10, 5 out of 5 stars, that type of rating. And, yeah, it is, like, the most loved Goosebumps book next to Haunted Mask. Because, yeah, it is just never talked about negatively. And this one, I've only heard a few people say a small negative issue with it, and that is Say Cheese and Die. Another iconic book that nobody shits on. The only thing I've heard negativity-wise towards this book is the peer pressure aspect of Greg doing these things when he can just not do them, that stuff. I believe everybody's heard this at least one time in their years of collecting. How, yeah, it's stupid that Greg just goes along with it. I mean, yeah, I guess, but there would not be a story. Personally, I don't agree with that issue very much, but I see it. This is another story that gets 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10s across the board, and I have never heard anything negative about it besides maybe a lower score. And of course, that one thing I mentioned. Now, moving on from OG series books, I wanted to keep that limited because there are haters for every book, believe me or not. Whatever, even Haunted Mask. I know one guy who genuinely dislikes Haunted Mask. I'm not going to name that person. Tyler Bright. Let's move on to our first Series 2000, Cry of the Cat. It's the first, like on the Dead House. It is the most recognizable, next to another one, thanks to people popularizing it and having a mascot. But this one is just the first. It's most recognizable. It's really the most read Series 2000s, and yeah. Pretty self-explanatory. It's another Haunted Mask. Welcome to Dead House situation is just really popular, so people are gonna like it a lot more. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just the truth. And this one's case, that is very much it. I do want to point out that there's actually a hater for this book, and it's Stine. Stine is openly admitted, I don't know where, can't remember, but he doesn't like this book. That's the only negativity I've ever heard. I did see a 3-star review recently, and that's the worst I've seen besides Stine's disliking. So yeah, that's something interesting. Next up, we have our modern here today, and if you saw the cover, you already know what this is. Creep from the Deep. Creep from the Deep is probably the most liked modern book of all time in terms of Goosebumps. As of now, I wouldn't be surprised if the Haunted Mask graphic novel takes that place soon, because a lot of people love it so far. There's a 4.5 on Goodreads, which is very high for Goosebumps, since it's usually like a 3.7 average. Creep from the Deep, very well loved. I hear nothing but like just glowing reviews for this book. And this is right up there with like Haunted Mask in terms of love. Just, I never hear negativity towards this book. Yeah, I agree. This is an amazing book. So yeah. This next book is a GYG. It was on the cover, so I already spoiled it. This one is really liked amongst the GYGs, and I'm not sure if that's just because of the cover. And that is Escape from Camp Run for Your Life. The cover is one of the lesser known books, but it is one of the more well-liked covers. And I don't know, I feel like this is a book that's never talked about much, but it is really loved. Like, a lot of people say, oh, that's a great one. And I see a lot of 5 stars, 4-star reviews for this one. This is probably the most liked GYG I've ever heard. Like, I hear nothing but positivity whenever this one's brought up, even including the cover, of course. And that's why I think it might be liked so much, is because people are looking at the cover, or in other words, maybe overrating it or judging the books by its cover. Let me tell you, I kind of agree, it's amazing. I just read it for the first time, and yeah, this is the best GYG thus far, and I've read 21 now. Yeah, this is easily the best GYG, and I see why people like it so much. I think that is probably the fan favorite GYG. Now, this next book, actually, I'm going to flip these two. This next book, we have another OG series. I threw this one in last minute, I kind of forgot about it. And that is The Werewolf of Fever Swamp. Nothing negative, right? I have never heard a negative thing about this book besides, like, it's kind of slow. And, like, it takes a minute to get there with the werewolf action. That's about it. I haven't heard anything negative besides that. Which is really good, of course. I'm glad people really like this book, because it is a pretty darn good book. I don't think it is amazing, but I think it's pretty darn good. One of the more above average Goosebumps books, I feel, because, you know, it has a more engaging story, I guess. And yeah, this one is just one that I never see negativity for, and I don't know why. Because the other ones I can kind of get, but this one's like, why necessarily? I think it might be because it's just one of the more popular books without being like a namesake. Because there are popular books in Goosebumps that aren't like Haunted Mask level. This is an example. I think it's really popular, but not like the most popular, like, top 10 books of all Goosebumps, at least the OG series. No, this isn't there. But it'd be like top 15 at the least. It's like really popular, but not really popular to where people are gonna go, yeah, amazing. And I don't see people giving this 10 out of 10s. Not very often, but I do see like 4 out of 5, 9 out of 10s, 8 out of 10s, 8.5s, my rating. And it's just like, I can kind of get that, besides the fact that I'm surprised it's not more popular than it is for being such a loved one. This next one, the final one. This one I feel is very overrated. This could be its whole own video on its own, and it will be. I'm gonna make a review for this at some point, hopefully before the end of the year. Depends. And shout to women, I guess. That book is Slappy's Nightmare. This book is just a loved Slappy book in the community. Right? People love to talk about Dummy 1 for free a lot. Rides usually just skipped over. And then it comes to this book. I cannot tell you how many fucking times I've heard people say, it's the GOAT. Best Slappy book. It's amazing. Great book. 10 out of 10. One of the best books ever made. Shit like that. And I'm gonna be honest, it really pisses me off. I don't mind people having an opinion, alright? And I agreed for the longest time that this was one of the best Goosebumps books ever made. And upon reread, I'm not gonna give you a rating, I found it was fucking terrible. I'm not even kidding with you. It might have been the effect of reading so many Goosebumps books, or rereading, of course, so many Goosebumps books within the past, like, year. It might have made me have a negative, outlook on Slappy, because, I don't really like him after a certain point. But he can be good. Ghost of Slappy, for example, in the first half of that book, he was a pretty fucking solid antagonist, like, genuinely creepy and awesome. But here, he's not rootable, he's not entertaining to read about, amongst many other things, alright? The story is fucking terrible. The ending is terrible. The climax is it just happens. There's fucking fake outs, there's dumb build-up, gross to read about fight scene, if you know what I mean. It involves food. It's like a food fight, and it's just like, ew. Like, I don't want to read about dummies in pea soup, if you know what I mean. It's fucking gross. And there's just so much bad in this book. It's hard to believe that people call it the best Slappy book. It pisses me off that people like this so much. I'm gonna fucking say it. It really doesn't make any sense, because this is just so fucking bad. I said it. But I'm glad that people do find enjoyment, but I'm just not glad that it's that much. There are so many people who go, best Slappy book, amazing! Like, you can like it, it's just like, chill, man. Look at it again. Horrible ending, horrible fucking writing, horrible story. You get what I mean. Yeah. Hopefully I'm not gonna persuade you guys, but in like, oh, I'm gonna lower my score immediately. I recommend people go reread that one, and that's why I saved that one for last. Really fucking bad. And then they just like, alright, 10 out of 10. Because, it's Slappy's nightmare. I spent $40 on it. Stuff like that. I don't know. Hella overrated. Anyways, hope you guys enjoyed the video. I have nothing else to say besides, if you guys have any other books you'd like to mention that you think are universally loved, maybe it's more from the modern series, tell me what you think in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.